Eileen Fisher, we are so honored to have. Please sit down over on the sofa over here.
Okay.
That's your water. Eileen really is one of the great leaders of sustainability and social consciousness in business. And we're going to get into that in some detail. But I wanted you to start, you were at the White House just last week.
Right.
Talk about what led you there and what you found when you were there and the mood.
Well, I was invited because of the, what they call it, the IRA.
Right.
I didn't even realize it was called that. The
Inflation Reduction Act, which
I
we
think
like
it's
to
the
think of as
Climate
the
Act.
Climate Act, but yes.
Right. But because of the work that I do in sustainability, I got an invitation. So it was, I went to celebrate, which it was a really fun celebration, and I was happy about that. I was happy to hear that we're supposed to be reducing the carbon footprint 40% by 2030. Is that true?
We hope that funding could help us achieve that goal, is the hope.
Yeah. It gave me hope. It gave me hope. I was, some days I feel a little down, but now I feel hopeful. So.
Can you all hear her okay?
Can you hear me?
Yes? Okay, can we get Eileen louder by any chance?
I have a soft voice, right?
Thank you. Oh, that's a little louder, good.
Yeah.
So, you have done I think you just told me backstage, 25 years ago.
Yeah.
Well, you started the company in '84. 25 years ago, you hired a director for social consciousness?
Right.
Why did you do that?
I think it was her idea. She was great. Actually, she was working as someone's assistant, and that person left the company, and then we talked with her about what else she might do, and I think that was her idea.
But obviously, you liked this idea.
Oh, yeah. We thought, we were concerned at the time about producing in China and the concern about social issues, sweatshops, things like that, and, we weren't thinking specifically about the environment at that point, though we were always about natural fibers and timeless design, those kinds of things. Now, can you hear me? I feel like I'm echoing.
I think it's a lot better now, yes.
Okay.
You're fine. Echoing is all right as long as we can hear you.
Okay.
You're not echoing, really. So, the thing that's amazing about you is you've always brought your human self to business and not really compromised just because you were leading a company. I think that's sadly highly unusual. And we were talking backstage, you had the good fortune or the reality of a private company, no
Right.
pressures of Wall Street.
Right, I own the place. No.
But have you thought of yourself as a leader of responsible business? Or were you just thinking of yourself as doing what anybody should do?
What I do, right. I suppose more lately, because people have been calling that out and recognizing us for the work that we do. But no, I think of myself as a designer, and I try to solve problems through design. And so I like clothes, and I like really timeless, simple design, and I'm just really interested in what endures and those kinds of things. So that's really who I am, and out of it, I think we drew in a lot of people who saw what I was doing and thought it was meaningful and valuable and all natural fibers, and so we drew in people who cared about the environment just very naturally, because I was just responding to what I loved and was doing what I love, and then they were kind of naturally drawn in, and so then they bring their ideas forward, and then things sort of build from there.
Well, and you also have always had a company that seems to have had a very strong orientation towards collaboration and inclusion in the whole everything. And you have your employees are all owners, but you also seem to respect their point of view. I guess one thing I'm curious about, given simplicity is such a mantra for you in your design, do you think simplicity has been kind of intuitively a mantra in your leadership style also, and your sense of being clear about priorities?
Oh. Well, that's something I have to work very hard on. That's not intuitive for me.
It's hard.
No. The whole leadership piece is not my nature, particularly to I'm always sort of, I think I lead from the center of the idea. And so I try to always explain what the idea is and what I'm trying to do and get people to join. So I think, but others, I have great people, I have a wonderful people and culture team, and it's always been super important to me to have those people. My accountant, my CFO for years used to say, the HR department is much bigger here than other companies, and the social consciousness department grew too, and
So you still have you still have a social consciousness department?
Oh yeah. And now what's happened is actually, this is what's really interesting, is over the years, and maybe I'm going to say, when was this, 8 or 10 years ago, we started to think, how do we take this sustainability work and really embed it deeply into the company? Because it's really interesting ideas. Like I said, it was Amy Hall who said, maybe this would be the right job for me. Ideas come from everywhere. It's like these plastic bags, we shouldn't be doing that with our clothes. Or all these plastic hangers, what can we do differently? Depending on where you are, you see things that could change, or transportation issues, or the fabrics that we use, the designers, how do they think about the materials? And so we did Amy Hall had organized and hired a group that did systems work. I heard that there's going to be people talking about systems work.
Very shortly after, we have a whole system on systems thinking and
it's
systems.
so important.
Yes.
It's so important. And what we did was created a 4-day workshop on sustainability and how do we embed it throughout the whole system in the company. And it started really with work on our individual selves, all of us, getting lit up about what we cared about the environment, and then, being a part of this workshop. And we brought in designers and marketing people and supply chain people and, cross-functional team, and really, worked to, and it started with me saying, this matters to me, how are we gonna really embed this work deeply into the company? And it's been really interesting because I think it gives real purpose and meaning to the work that people do. That, now we still have a planet, besides social consciousness, we have a people and planet team that is cross-functional, that gathers people from across the company and looks at all the possible things that we might do to make a difference.
Well, you were telling me also that decades ago you started in effect moving towards regenerative agriculture in your supply chain,
right,
just because of what you were hoping to get from the cotton. But talk about
right,
regenerative agriculture and fashion and how you think of the connection.
Oh, well, yes, first of all, just in the very early days, just from a design point of view, I didn't like the fabrics with weird chemical finishes. I didn't like the polyester. I would always be in dialogue with the suppliers. How can we make this fabric more, I didn't say more sustainable, I wanted it to be more natural, So that was kind of the beginning. And then, what was your question? Regenerative.
Yeah, regenerative agriculture.
So I think what happened is just over time, we built more awareness. And I think I learned more. So, Amy Hall brought forward, she had a meeting, I remember, 20 years ago, about our materials. So that we started, and she said she helped us understand that our biggest impact was materials. And so we needed to really look at, can we move our cottons to organic? Can we move our, can we look at all of our dyes? And we started, convening the dye houses in China to look at how we could do the dye process more in a more clean way. We just started looking at all the parts. And then the regenerative. So after going to organic, we began to realize that there's additional opportunity to actually create regenerative agriculture that actually draws down carbon in the way that you, it's such a natural process that
you can grow cotton and sequester carbon.
And sequester carbon, and the way you herd sheep in the wool farms, you can actually sequester carbon. It's pretty exciting. I think it's one of the things that we're seeing, the farming coming up in the new bill. So I'm excited about the farming aspect.
I think the concept of regenerative agriculture, which has been pretty much not on the radar in American business and society, has really rapidly gone to the forefront. Just recently, I think we must have much more attention to that. But I'm curious, when you went to the farmers that were growing stuff, and how did they receive that imperative?
Yeah, well, to be honest, I didn't do it personally, so I don't know exactly what their responses were, but I know that it was a dialogue through the supply chain, and it was a dialogue about, and I don't know how we got involved in the beginning of that, but it was, it was a conversation about, it costs them more, and they lose money doing transitioning from regular cotton to organic. And so we agreed to buy their transition cotton for 3 years while they were becoming organic. And that didn't get us all the way to regenerative, but we're still working on.
But it was really working with the supply chain all the way back to the growers.
Right.
Yeah.
It's all about dialogue internally with the employees or with the supply chain, with the customers, always in dialogue.
When you...
That's the collaborative process.
It sounds like it. I'm curious, when you look at business generally,
Yeah.
why do you think that mindset is so rare?
Well, I think that I don't want to blame the stock market or the...
You can go ahead and blame the stock market.
But I think the system needs massive change, so I'm glad to have systems people coming. I think the system, like I'm occasionally in the room with CEOs from fashion companies, all the big ones, and they basically say, I'm responsible for the bottom line. This is extra work. How do I do this and justify it? And I say if you don't do it, you might not be around in 5 or 10 years. So we have to do it. Look at the risk.
Do you think some of them are starting to recognize it?
I do, but the systems are not set up across the board. Like only 1% of cotton is organic today. It's mostly still conventional farming. The whole fashion system needs a massive overhaul. I want to say something for people who are interested in fashion, and it's a side note, but it's something we talked about, that one of the biggest problems in fashion is the waste in the system. And I heard, Allie, someone was talking about the food waste.
Yeah.
40% of food is wasted. 80% of clothing is wasted. 75% globally of clothes that are made within 1 year are discarded, or they're either incinerated or discarded. In this country, it's 83%.
I mean, the clothes that are sold or not sold, produced.
Sold, clothes that are produced.
People throw out their clothes.
People throw out their clothes within a year. People buy things that they, throw them out. Give them away is good. Give away your clothes. And a lot of manufacturers make too much stuff, and they want to keep their brand image. They burn things. I don't want to bore you with the details, but I have a white paper my foundation did called Hey Fashion. If you're interested in diving into the mess of the fashion industry, you could go there and get something.
It's highly recommended, and a lot of it's about circularity and reuse.
It's a piece of the waste piece that I'm just stressing.
You've also been open to what some might call used things in your own business for a long time. Talk about that.
Right. Well, in 2009, we started what we call our Renew program, which we realized in the company that we had too many clothes in our closet, but they were good. One of the things about my clothes is I feel like if I make products that are timeless, that are simple, that endure, and that are good quality, people will keep them, or they will give them to family members or friends, or to a consignment shop. They'll keep them in circulation. In circulation.
Yeah.
Thank you. So we decided that we had too many clothes, so we opened a store, and we were playing with the idea of just returning our clothes and seeing if people would buy the recycled clothes. And I was a little nervous because I didn't want to see all the mistakes I'd made over the years, because I knew the things that were wrong, But it was really interesting because we just employees, brought our things back, and then we started reselling them, and the customers were buying them as if they were new. We just cleaned them and put them back on the racks, and they almost didn't know the difference. And that was really interesting to me. We could sell them at much less. And so then the customers started saying, oh, I have a lot of your clothes. Can I bring them back? And so we started the program in 2009, opened it to our customers, and we've been doing it ever since. I mean, the interesting and sad part is today we're really proud of the fact that we just moved from 3 to 4% of clothes that we take back. So it's not very much, but you know, my hope is that what a lot of our customers say is that I'm not returning your clothes, I keep them, I wear them, my daughter wants them, you know, so I'm holding out hope that that's the reason that they're not throwing them away, so, or bringing them back.
I want you guys to be able to ask questions. I don't know, do we have a microphone out there? If we don't, could somebody make sure we get a microphone ready in the audience? You know, you have a new CEO. You've just stopped being CEO, which is a term you never liked anyway. About within the last 2 weeks, you've stopped being CEO.
Yeah.
Your new CEO was head of operations at Patagonia.
Yeah.
So comes right out of this company that has just made this extraordinary transition that's historic and inspiring many in business.
Right.
Talk about how you look at what Patagonia and how do you say his name again? Chouinard?
Chenard.
Chenard, thank you.
Chenard.
What he has done is amazing and admirable. Talk about it from your perspective.
Yeah, yeah. It's admirable. Honestly, from my perspective, for 20 years or more, I've been thinking about my succession plan and what do I do with this company when I pass on. I don't like to think about it, but you know, I started talking to my daughter the other day, and she burst out in tears when I started talking about, you know, I don't want to think about you dead, Mom. I'm like, okay, okay. But we have to think about it because we have an opportunity to think about what's possible. But you know, people have questioned, but people mostly think this is a really good thing that he's doing, and I say this is a good thing. And I think, well, when you die, there's a huge estate tax, and so that's another thing. But the point is to keep the company going. I think is a good thing because in the midst of the work itself, you can make change, like what I'm talking about, regenerative agriculture, or you know, cleaner dye process, closed loop technology to actually, you know, clean the water as we go. There's a lot of wonderful opportunities to make change right in the midst of the work when we have the power of our brands behind us and the power of our buying power to, you know, work with sourcing opportunities and make change there. So keeping Patagonia alive in the transition is I think a good thing, and you know, helping the climate, you know, and I think there's that whole thing about wealth and what do we do with our wealth, and there's just a lot of interesting conversation happening about, you know, giving our wealth away in our lifetime. What about our children? How do we? I don't know. I'm just wrestling with all of it, and I think it's great. It's an interesting model, and I think accumulating lots of wealth is, I don't know. I don't know what to think about it. It's never what motivated me, though I actually have been turned out to be quite wealthy. So I don't know what to say about that, you know.
You know, if anyone,
David, we have a question over
It's a
here.
contradiction. It's like business and sustainability. It's like we love to see our numbers go up and our business doing really well, and then we go like, oh, but shouldn't we be doing less? And you know, degrowth, and so we're wrestling with how to do it. And
when you have a foundation, but
Sorry,
I think it's, and there's a lot, we could talk about that, but I think we won't really have time for that. But this idea that the conduct of the business itself becomes contributory to societal health and sustainability is so beautiful. And it's not like you're the only person who thinks that way. Obviously, we have the Patagonia example and plenty of good things happening in many, many companies.
Right.
But the degree of the shift that we still need toward that mindset is a little bit scary. So talk a little bit about your big picture of where you see us headed as a capitalist society and the intersection between business and society.
Whoa, that's big. Maybe I would just say that I feel some hope. You know, I feel that systems trying to change. Like what gives me hope are things like the ESGs. You know, and people want to impact investing. People want to, you know, put money into companies that are trying to do the right thing. And it gives me hope that the system is changing. We're a B Corp. Someone else I saw was a B Corp here. I think it's a great business model because it forces you to measure your impacts and to keep moving forward on your path and measure things beyond just profitability. And, how do we impact the environment and what are the social impacts? And
Yeah, measurement of other things beyond profitability is a great point. Who has a question for Eileen? We do have a mic.
Okay, I promised one over here.
You got
so
one?
let me-
Okay, go for it.
no hard questions,
Running
only
quickly.
softball questions.
Identify yourself, please.
Hi, my name is Cameron. I'm with IBM. Eileen, you mentioned that, for these organizations, 83% of the product goes to waste. And it seems as of late that there's this huge resale market popping up where you have companies like The RealReal and Poshmark really taking the residual value of sold products. So curious from your perspective, why aren't these bigger brands kind of tapping more into that resale market or partnering? Is it brand image? Is it cost? Just curious your perspective.
Good question.
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't know. I don't do it because we have our own program, but I think it's good. I think what they're trying to do is good, and I think buying used clothing and renting and all those models are really interesting. I think the rental model doesn't work for us because, well, we like to believe people buy our clothes, they love our clothes, they want to keep our clothes and wear them every day. So rather than renting, but yeah, why don't people do that? I don't know. I wish they would do more of what we do also, like really taking the clothes back and, finding out what's so great. You find out what's wrong, and then you change the design up front, and then you take the things that you can't sell and figure out how to remake them and do other things with them. It creates, I don't know, there's so much opportunity. I don't know. I think it's time consuming to figure it out. Maybe there's more profit just in straight out, selling as much as you can, Yeah, it's more profitable probably. That's probably the answer. I had to go around in circles to get there. But.
What do you think is the hardest thing about being a sustainable business?
Yeah, I think I kind of maybe said that when I was talking about the struggle between growth and sustainability.
Right.
And so like making sure that we grow in really good and healthy ways and not just like at one point, this was maybe a year before COVID, I started to realize that we were kind of going off track. Too many of the clothes we were making, we were kind of too broad, too many fabrics, a little too far out there, and we've grown so much, and we were pleasing customers and department stores and so on, and I think just coming back for us to simplicity, and I think running a business that's sustainable means really looking at all those things and balancing how we grow and making sure we grow in good and healthy ways. So it's hard because we look at the numbers every week and go like, we were up 10%, we were up 20%, and we're really excited about that. And then it's like, oh, but during COVID, the environmental impact went down. So, Anyway, it's a balancing act, and it's keep looking for the opportunities and the positives and the way to draw down carbon and do things better. And then it's okay to sell them as long as they're doing good.
Given all the things you've learned running a huge company that grew, that had impact, that had satisfied customers, and now that really is consciously trying to be a climate positive company, what would you say is one or more things that other companies could learn from what you've in the past called your prototype?
Right. Yeah. Well, I think that, we try to model a company that, in the core work itself is meaningful and is good for the environment, like timeless design that lasts. The product itself that you're making is a really good and meaningful thing, instead of like, I don't mean to put down fast fashion because I'm just not going to say it, so I didn't say it. But, to start by the core work itself is good and meaningful. I think that's an important part of the prototype. I think it's not okay to make products that are bad for the environment and then try to do good things or give money to charity. It's got to be integrated. That's what interests me. And so how we do it, both internally, how the people work together, the products we care about, just nurturing the culture and diversity in the culture and, all of those parts. We're a B Corp, we're an ESOP. I'm very proud of, 40% of the companies owned by the employees. I actually think that's a good part of the prototype. I think that employees, that would help with the wealth disparity if more employees owned parts of companies. That's another piece of it. B Corp, yeah.
Well, you are a systems thinker, and
Yeah.
that is very inspiring.
Yeah.
And I'm glad we have a session on systems
I am
thinking
too.
coming
That's
up.
fantastic.
And I thank you tremendously for being here with us. You've been really a wonderful proponent of doing things the right way. So thank you.
Okay, well, thanks, David.
Thank you so much.